Star Wars, directed by George Lucas and produced by Gary Kurtz, and has a score composed by John Williams, is considered to be one of the most innovative films of all time. If you remember back a year ago, I did actually make a review of Star Wars, but it was pretty bad and had very bad video and audio quality. This time I hope to improve upon the original video, and the original video is still going to be on YouTube because I think that it is a good way to preserve the channel's history, to not delete any videos from this channel, unless I thoroughly feel that the video needs to be deleted. But that will rarely happen, unless it's a video that outright attacks a group of people, but I don't think I'd ever make a video like that. So, how does Star Wars hold up? Now, I don't want to be wasting any time, so let's get into this review. For 1977, Star Wars has very stunning effects. The special effects in this movie look actually realistic, and even look pretty good today. And even the Death Star, how its appearance, it looks really huge, and it looks extremely ominous with all the different rooms, and it makes the characters feel small in comparison. The Rebellion is made small compared to the Empire, and this is even shown in the opening shot where the Rebel spaceship is much smaller than the Empire ship. Another thing about the effects is that these space effects look relatively good today, but in 1977, this looked amazing. You would have never seen this before in any other film, besides maybe 2001: A Space Odyssey. But other than that, this was probably one of the first times that audiences really got to see space look this good in a film. And even the lightsabers look really good. They're basically sabers made of light that can cut through anything. Well, almost anything. And they look pretty good. The flashes used when they hit each other look pretty good. Also, there's no point where the sound seems too quiet or too loud. And I know that's probably just like something that shouldn't matter, but trust me, in so many bad movies, the sound or the volume is a huge problem. I'm just glad this movie doesn't have that. As for the score, it's composed by John Williams, and it's extremely memorable. Pretty much anyone, even people who have never seen this film, can remember the opening scroll theme, which is extremely memorable and sets the tone very well. It's an adventure movie. It's a coming-of-age movie. And each scene represents something. Well, not all scenes, but one scene in particular is a scene where Luke looks off into a binary sunset on planet Tatooine. And this really shouldn't mean much, but this works well. This scene really sets the movie in the tone of a coming-of-age story. I mean, really, all it is Luke looking out into a binary sunset. But the music playing, it's about Luke longing for more adventure, more outside of his inside world of Tatooine, as if he's only seen that planet. He wants to see more. And even today, people still cry when they see the scene because of what it represents. As for the rest of the, songs used in the score, they're really memorable. Each one fits the scene perfectly. Even the ending credits scene. So, how about the actual coming-of-age story? As I said, with the Tatooine scene of the binary sunset perfectly representing Luke wanting more adventure, and it sets up the rest of the movie perfectly. Even though it's just a scene of Luke looking out into the sunset. The coming-of-age story is pretty clear here. It's about Luke, who starts out as basically any other average guy, pretty much. He's actually extremely relatable because this is what most people would probably be like, or like pretty normal, not really have too much excitement out of their life, unless they're a criminal or are maybe a government agent, but most people don't really have too much excitement in their life. Luke runs into 2 droids. And then his aunt and uncle get killed off. And then he has this huge adventure, and everything looks huge and ominous. The Death Star looks huge and ominous, and it actually looks like a real space station. He goes into a trash compactor. He sees Darth Vader for like a few seconds, but he still sees him. He sees him kill Obi-Wan Kenobi. Nothing is working out here. Luke seems so small and insignificant compared to the rest of the Empire. And even when he battles the Death Star, it is the final moments of the film. Everything that he has seen in this film has been building up to this battle on the Death Star, and it works perfectly. Now, there are a few problems I have with the story. Firstly, some characters aren't as useful as others. Mainly C-3PO and Chewbacca. And there's also other characters that I feel are pretty unnecessary in the actual movie. One of those characters, again, is C-3PO. The only purpose he has is to play the straight man into R2-D2's humor, which is something that the other characters could do just fine. So, other than that, he really doesn't serve too much of a purpose. Most of the things he did are things that R2-D2 could probably do as well. And then you have Chewbacca. He doesn't get too much screen time, and for what screen time he gets, he really doesn't do too much, and is basically only Han's sidekick. Another character that I feel is very underwhelming is the character of Grand Moff Tarkin. People say that he's supposed to be like the main villain, but even in this film, Darth Vader seems much more like the main villain because he's the one that kills Obi-Wan. He is the one that tries to kill everyone in the Death Star battle. He is the one that you see in the opening scene. Grand Moff Tarkin, he only appears for like 10 minutes on screen, probably, and he gets killed off in the end, and most first-time viewers wouldn't even know who he was because he doesn't leave too much of an impact on them. And that's probably why we haven't seen him since. Though he was in Revenge of the Sith for like a few seconds and didn't have any dialogue. Other than that, I find this character to be extremely underwhelming. As for other problems I have with the story, apparently Han Solo has some debt he has to pay for Jabba the Hutt. This story goes absolutely nowhere. And originally there was going to be a scene with Jabba the Hutt in the movie, as they had a human actor, and that was originally going to be replaced with something else. However, they just removed the scene entirely, and because of that, this plot goes nowhere. And even if they kept the scene in, the plot would still go nowhere, because Han Solo never actually pays off the debt. All the lines in that scene are pretty much pointless. It just explains stuff we already know, so removing that scene probably did the movie good. But what I think they needed to do was expand on this storyline a bit more, because back in 1977, when people watched this for the first time, nobody thought that it would get a sequel, or 2 sequels, or 6. And there's also more problems with the story. Firstly, when Luke's aunt and uncle are killed, he doesn't really care when they're killed. He just kind of looks at them. And they're never really mentioned again, so what was the point of them in the film? I think they should have had a stronger purpose. Maybe make Luke have more emotion towards his aunt and uncle, or something like that, or even just any kind of expansion to Luke's emotions when his aunt and uncle die. That should have been added to the film. Instead, it seems like he doesn't really care at all when they're dead, which is a really huge problem. Again, another problem with the story is one that has kind of the same concept. When Leia's home planet is destroyed, the one that she has known since childbirth, she doesn't care. She just kind of looks at the planet and has somewhat of a face on her, but other than that, she doesn't have any real emotion towards the fact that her home planet just got exploded or destroyed, and the entire planet. She just kind of looks at it and it's really never mentioned again. So, again, this should have been expanded upon. Other problems are include some consistency errors in this movie. In the beginning or opening shots, we see the stormtroopers able to shoot people just fine, but in the rest of the film, they suck. Literally, these stormtroopers have to be the worst soldiers I have ever seen. They can't shoot for crap. And that's weird because, again, like I said, the opening shots show that the stormtroopers can shoot just fine, but now, later in the film, they shoot terribly. But most of these problems are actually just kind of nitpicks, or minor problems. Some of them are nitpicks, some of them are minor problems. Most of them don't really hinder the enjoyment of the film, though. What does hinder the enjoyment of the film are the special editions. You see, this film got remade many times, and in 1997 it was remade with new changes. These changes actually destroyed the film. I know they're supposed to add to the film, but most of them just destroyed them. Most of the changes range from completely pointless to outright stupid. I'm not going to discuss the changes too much because I already did in the earlier video, but let's just say that most of these changes really have no reason to be in the film, and we would just be fine if the film was just remade in HD. The characters do help the story a lot, and I've already discussed some of the characters, but what about the rest of them? R2-D2, he doesn't actually really talk. He just makes beeping noises. However, unlike C-3PO, Chewbacca, and Grand Moff Tarkin, he actually serves somewhat of a purpose. His purpose is that he hides the plan for the Death Star to be destroyed, and they need to take those plans to the rebellion so they can use them to destroy the Death Star. So, overall, he's basically just a comic relief character, but again, he can be pretty humorous at times. As for Darth Vader, you know from the moment he goes on screen that this is going to be an ominous villain. He strikes fear into the eyes of anyone, and his ominous breathing and his voice, provided by James Earl Jones, very threatening, and he does not take any crap. He will choke people because they don't agree in his religion, and he will kill people because they don't tell him the plans to the Death Star. This is not one person to be messed with, and he is great at fighting in the air, or dogfighting. He is not a villain to be messed with. He is a very ominous villain, one of the most memorable ever. He definitely deserves his spot in movies' greatest villains. He also kills Obi-Wan Kenobi, which is a pretty big deal. Oh, and speaking of Obi-Wan Kenobi, he plays the basic wise old man character that had already been seen before in other films, and he does a pretty good job at it. Teaches Luke about the ways of the Jedi, and then he gets killed. It works because Luke had already been taught by Obi-Wan throughout the film, and had even known Obi-Wan for a long time, making his death all the much more shocking. Han Solo plays the jerk who soon gets a change of heart. He starts as, well, like I said, a jerk. He doesn't really care about anything except the money. He only is into saving the princess for the money. And this is not working well with other characters, even Chewbacca, who is supposed to be a sidekick. He eventually leaves, and then he comes back with a change of heart. The portrayal of him being a jerk and being a pretty just bad person overall really works into the coming of age story, as he starts off as your average person with not the best legal record to a hero at the end, and is even awarded a medal for his bravery. Princess Leia, she is seemingly the basic damsel in distress character, but she actually does something. She actually proves herself useful during some scenes in the movie. She's not kidnapped because reasons and stuff like that. No, she's captured because she knows the plans to the Death Star, and is even kind of tortured by Darth Vader because she knows the plans. She's not a basic damsel in distress character, and that would probably alienate audiences if she was, as she would just be like any kind of regular damsel in distress needs to be saved, but saving her isn't really the main plot of the movie. The main plot is trying to overcome the Empire, which is a much better plot than saving damsel in distress. As for other aspects of the film, I don't have too much about them. I mean, there are some scenes that I like the trash compactor scene, which represents how much that the team or so of basically how Luke, Han, and Leia can't get along, and then they overcome the challenge. How each of the characters work as a team, and they soon grow as a team, and at the end they succeed in their task. I could talk about the action, how it's on point and is very engaging. But most of what matters is the coming of age story. And the biggest part of this film is Luke Skywalker as a character. He is relatable because he starts out as an average Joe, like I said. Then he grows in power as the film goes on and even overcomes the Empire as he destroys the Death Star. Until the second movie, that is. So, Luke Skywalker basically represents the coming-of-age story that this movie is. So, as for the movie itself, my opinion, it's a great action movie. If you like space movies, and if you like action movies, or pretty much if you like movies in general, then watch this. It is worth all of your time. It is even worth your money. It is the perfect and iconic coming-of-age story. You will remember this film for many years. There are some films that are not very memorable and, they don't really stick in your head too much because there are some scenes that are just really boring and stuff like that. But this movie is extremely memorable. You will remember most of the scenes from this movie from start to finish. So, this movie is actually better than what I remember it to be. So, it will get a 99%. But, I need to talk about the special editions. Most of the changes don't ruin the film entirely, but they do take away from some of the enjoyment, and make the film a little bit worse. So, for the special edition for this film, I'm going to give it a 90%. Like I said, they don't ruin the film completely. There's just too much of them, and most of the CGI makes the film look pretty bad when it's made with the puppets from earlier years. So, that's it. That's my review on Star Wars. Thank you for watching. Please leave a comment, like, and subscribe. And if you hated this review, please tell me why. Other than, lol, that review sucked. Goodbye.